Okay. Let me adjust this a bit. And here we are. And start out with a couple of things here. And then we'll get up and move. Okay. Okay. Sun, Earth, Moon, harmonized perfectly. The golden bridge sparkles and floats amidst the mountain echo. Okay. So since I, composed poetry, okay, obviously, he took themes that he was himself studying or had sort of internalized and framed them in Japanese poetry. What I think they're called doka, poems of the way. But again, sun, earth, moon, harmonized perfectly. And if you kind of read some of the other stuff, he really talks about sun, earth, moon. They don't fight one another. There is an accord, a relationship. Earth to sun, earth to moon, moon to earth, sun. There's just a sense where everything is in accord. There's a perfection, a harmony. Okay? The golden bridge sparkles and floats amid the mountain echo. I assume the golden bridge was what he calls Ame no Ukihashi, the floating bridge of heaven. I like the Golden State Warrior thing because it has a bridge. Okay, so it's a reminder to me, not necessarily to play basketball, but about the bridge. Okay. And it floats amid the mountain echo. The echo. So there's a perfection or design. And then there's this sort of back and forth echo phenomenon. He talks about our own key of the universe, kind of reflecting, talking, echoing. And right through all of that is the golden bridge, which kind of floats. Floating is not drifting, okay, but it's also not set. So there's a lot in that poem. And sometimes it's difficult to discourse on that because the stuff he's talking about is obviously very personal, but he's somebody who sort of universalized himself, so it is important. Okay. And I thought today what we do is start out, at least initially, with some bokken work. Okay? But before we do that, I want you to do a little bit is focus on that point. Japanese is tan, then Chinese, oftentimes Master Choi would, in Tai Chi, would call it the dantian. And there's your breath going. See, for me, I really focus on the breath going more up and down. But there's that point. There's your breathing. And you talked about the sun, earth, moon, but let's just say the points of the body are there. And we oftentimes go into contortions or our attention just drawn out. But so this point, and let's say it has a floating quality. So you can drift. A lot of times in meditation, you go, oh, where was I? Okay. But then again, we set. But that sort of suspended floating feeling. Everything in the body is a point like the sun, earth, moon, in relationship. Everything is related to everything else. And I'm just maybe a bit of a stretch, but the in-breath, out-breath may represent on some level the mountain echo. It's all going on. And that point is where it is, but it floats. It's not set, nor does it drift. And initially, there's a lot. So we go into what we call contemplation. I think I was going to say contemplate it a lot, contemplate the sun, moon, earth. Just sit there and think about them. Contemplate how they exist in relationship with one another. They do not fight. They are in harmony. Contemplation is not thinking. Reflection, contemplation are very similar, maybe the same. Initially, we'd be reflecting on that point, just sort of suspended, floating, not drifting, not setting. And the breath being easy, and it's, see, you can do the breath this way, but in seated, I tend to go. Of course, it goes out, comes back, but I verticalize the breath. So initially, contemplate is a little different than think about. I'm thinking about it all. The mind is too busy. And all those things are going on. Your shoulders, back, hips, feet, knees. We want them to be like the sun, moon, and the earth. They're not fighting one another. And in some sense, that point is like the golden bridge. It just floats, but it doesn't drift, nor does it set. Okay. Anyway, let's. So, just start here. Let me. Yeah, I think so. Okay. Again, observe where you are. For me, sort of know that's there. Let me just make sure everything is. I set it up, but. Okay. Now, what we're going to do here, I'm going to get busy swinging the sword. No, for a second. We're going to focus on this point. we'll check things like proper grip. I like V here is supposed to a clenched fist, or this is too loose. Thumbs here, right? But this is too tight. In this position, there's that point in relationship to me and the sword. Okay, now what we're going to do. Now let's reestablish that point. And let's reestablish that point. And let's reestablish that point. And let's reestablish that point. Okay, so each time we swing, a lot of times you can get busy working on the cut. That's good. But point, cut, reestablish the point. And reestablish the point. And reestablish the point. And reestablish the point. And reestablish the point. Okay. And standing here, I can focus on that point. What I'd like you to do is move to a different position. Refocus on that point. Move to a different position. Refocus on that point. Now, I'm not really focusing on that point. I'm going to move and think about that point. I'm just here. I want to be over here. But I established that point. And I'm doing a movement. That point is still there after a bit. But again, the practice is here. Move to here. Reestablish. Okay. Let's see, I think it was 2006. Boy, that's a long time ago. The Do Sensei took a group of people to Hombu Dojo. And so he was showing me where his old apartment was. And he was kind of mentioning his practice. You know, there's a street lamp. And what he would do is he would center, walk to the next street lamp, center, walk to the next street lamp, center, walk to the next street lamp. Or what I find sometimes is I'm going to cross the street, center, across the street, recenter. So the initial thing is that everything kind of comes back to that, and we go out from that. But after a bit, that starts to be background. Okay, I was going to say sometimes he talks about the moon. Okay. And he says the moon is there always, even when it's not visible. Okay, certain times of the month we don't see it, but it's there somewhere. So that's what we kind of want with the point. That's the point, so to speak. Because I can't walk around thinking. See, I can walk around thinking at that point, but that's not what it's about. The act of focusing. This is going on. Focus. Move. Refocus. Move. Now, I'm swinging the sword, but that point. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the sword down. And I'm going to pick the sword up again. But I'm going to focus on that point. Okay. Get into my basic grip. But let's do this. Now, I'm going to put the sword down again. But I'm going to refocus on that point. Okay. Good. Now I'm going to pick it up again. But I'm going to refocus on that point. In certain periods of the month, we see the moon as a full moon, or a three-quarter moon, or a half moon, or a quarter moon, and then there's times when there is no visible moon. Basically, I just want this kind of in my subconscious. So it's always there, even when I'm not focusing on it. Initially, motion. I'm just in the movement, I'm in my flood of thoughts, but a little practice. Now, move to here, refocus. I'm going to put this down, but focus. Now, I'm going to pick it up, but refocus. So little things are a chance to practice. Now, I'm about to take a swing. I'm going to focus on that point. Refocus 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 on that point. So swing for a bit each time. Before you swing, refocus on that point. Okay. Now, we're doing a full raise and cut. We can also a shallower raise, deeper cut. Same thing, and get very busy with the cut. But point, cut, point, cut. So I can get very busy, even doing good things, but after a bit, the ability to focus gets very quick, and the cut comes out of that focus. Boom. Okay, good. And pause. Just let go for a bit. But you want that point to be a little bit like the moon where you don't see it. The moon's there, just not visible. And that makes it very easy to go, okay, focus, and, okay? So just for a second, anybody with an observation on that? That's very basic. It's very basic. But the amount of practice we do on that, sometimes we get so distracted by what's out there. Does anybody have a comment or somebody like to share?
This is Cliff.
Yes, Cliff.
We spend a lot of time in sword in particular focusing on the tip,
Yeah,
and whether it bounces or whether it stays in place and whether the cut is smooth and this and that, although the mechanics of swinging a sword. And
yeah,
so it's very different to be swinging a sword and focus on my center, right? That point, that's that internal point.
yeah.
So that's very interesting because I'm more noticing my balance, like
Yeah.
of my body or lack of balance, or
Okay.
that sort of thing. And the motion of the sword, it feels like the sword motion is actually better because I'm not focusing on the sword motion. That makes sense.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? We spend so much time being busy. Even at good things, we're busy. And when we're busy, oftentimes we're not appreciating or taking advantage of some very basic things. And so there's this dialogue here that's judging and trying to figure things out. And there's a certain amount of freedom when you can take advantage of the fact that anytime you can just refocus. Yeah, it's amazing. Sometimes what it's good to do is just, there's more driving happening, but you're gonna go, no, stop sign, focus. That was interesting, that one day where Nado Sensei went, where was going to his old apartment to show me where it was a block or two away from Homebrew Dojo. So it was a pretty nice place if you go train a lot. You don't have to walk and take the subway and, to get somewhere. So, but he just said, okay. One of those lampposts, center, walk to the next one, center, walk to the next one. Yeah, I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. There's a lot of practice. A lot of times, I'm going to stand up, okay, but I can, or I'm going to sit down. That doesn't mean I don't think about things. But if I'm too caught up in something, I get the ability to kind of refocus, reboot kind of quickly. Okay. My cat wants some attention. I don't have to ignore her. Hello. Oh. But I also don't have to get too busy around it. I know she has food, she has water, so she's just kind of being, come on, Dad, come up. Yeah, see that? And this kind of a cool experience that I would miss. She just wants to be friendly. Yeah. She wants a little attention, as we all do. But that point is a lot like her. Sometimes it's like, oh, there's all this going on because that point wants attention. What am I going to do? So just settle. And the ability, it's not a physical point. That's the whole point of it. If you start to think about that point and you stick your belly out, you get caught up in a lot of Oriental stereotypes. At any point in wherever we are, we can just sort of reestablish that point. And there'll still be dialogue going on, but we're kind of in a different place with it, you see. Anything else, Cliff? No? Okay.
No, not
Yeah.
really. I don't have a cat, but the kids demand attention. So, you know,
Yeah, that's the nice thing about it, is a lot of times, when there's a lot going on, okay, the kids do something, refocus. Sometimes there's this, it doesn't appear to be anything, any time to do that, but we get pretty good at just saying, okay, in an instant, good. And then somebody else takes their attention and boom, we're back. And certain activities we don't want to miss, right? I was with my granddaughter yesterday, and boy, she created these games where we're jumping up and down on the sofa and everything. And you don't want to be so here that you miss the ambiance of something special going on. But it's ironic that as you do this, you appreciate what's going on more without being kind of caught up and busy in it. When I'm busy with something, I like certain types of busy until I get too busy. And then I go, oh gosh, I used to love this, but. And this is kind of like a refresher. Okay. Anybody else, anything you'd like to share or comment on? This is a simple practice, whether you're swinging or we're going to, by the way, do a little bit more sword. Okay. Anybody? Anyway, just you may, as you are going, you may kind of note certain things. So save them. We'll check in again. Now, again, I'm thinking about it. It's more something that you contemplate. It's a little different than thinking. And after a bit, it's focus, not contemplation. You can focus on your breathing. But on the other hand, that point is a good one because I need to organize my thoughts. But I'm caught up in the busyness of my thoughts. Refocus, reboot. This is where things come out anyway. When I'm too busy on a certain sort of level, we stay busy at that level. And the way Einstein put it, you can't solve a problem at the level it was created. And if I'm got a problem and I'm in this dialogue at the level that created that problem, I can't solve it. So be easy. Drop out for a little bit for a second and refocus here. And there's a clarity. Now, you may not get an immediate answer, but the more you do that, the more you're going towards that place where the answers are. Okay? Okay. So maybe one way of looking at it is that here, the ability to focus on that point. Okay? Gives us practice in other things. Okay? Now, for example, we're just going to go through the cut. Now, for whatever reason, I'm going to raise this even though, because I want a little bit more. Yeah. The fullness of the cut. Okay. And I have that too. I can't, all of a sudden my hands disappear when I do that. So, start from here. Now we're going to branch out. Okay. The raise in motion. I'm creating a series of dots. Now the cutting motion, I'm going to connect the dots. Creating a series of dots, connecting the dots. See, if I just see this as raised and hit, there are no dots. It's just two gross movements. And as I continue to raise, the dots get finer, and my ability to connect the dots gets finer. Not focusing on how fast or how hard I'm swinging. Boom. Okay. So I'm doing more than swinging, creating a series of dots. Now I'm connecting the dots. Okay. Touch base for a little bit. Anybody with a comment, or in other words, I'm swinging, but then again, we can take the whole thing. Just like I can just sit, I can just do a bunch of things and get busy at them, but all of a sudden, we learn to focus on that point. At any, I'm going to raise my hand. Well, I can focus on that point and then raise my hand. Or check my breathing, I can focus on that point, check my breathing. So it becomes a kind of checkpoint. But as you do that, your ability to abstract also increases. This creates a series of points. Now what I'm going to do is connect the points. Anybody with anything to share on that? But anybody notice anything? Cliff, anything?
So I'm kind of hearing sound in my head with the points and the cut. So it's like do 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 do, zoop, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That helps me keep the metaphor in mind while I'm working. But also notice that when I again refocused on my center and not on the dots and the cut, then my cut got smoother.
Your cut what? Got smoother?
Got smoother.
Yeah, okay. But on the other hand, the whole thing is that this is the point. There's a series of points. Okay, now, series of points. We're going to connect the dots. Create the dots, connect the dots. create the dots, connect the dots, create the dots, connect the dots. What happens is as you do this, your ability to focus on, what Einstein might call the thought experiment, starts to change. If I'm too busy thinking about the dots, I miss them. If I get too mechanical, the dots can get finer. And our ability to connect them can get finer. Boom, boom, whatever, any motion. Boom. See, a lot of things, the mind leads, body follows. In other words, the series of dots is kind of a diagram for that motion. Mind is more like the dots forming, and then the body fills those, connects the dots. Okay. Now you also may get some sounds. Okay, because there's a sound structure to things. Okay, yeah. I did something yesterday with Nora. She has these magnets, right? And she was kind of making squares and cubes out of them, right? And so what I started doing, because there were like triangles, okay, and I started using the triangles, and it's kind of like, okay, I created this basically not a pyramid, that's a four-sided structure, but I created a three-sided structure, okay, where the base is also a triangle. If you have the pyramid, the base is a square. And so I was showing her how to do that. And Cliff, you might know this. What is that technically, if you, for example, take three triangular shapes and you go 1, 2, 3, therefore the base is a triangle. It's not 4, which creates a pyramid. Do you know the name for that?
It's called a tetrahedron.
Oh, really? Tetrahedron.
Yeah, 4 sides, tetrahedron.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of really, if you take 3 triangles.
No. That's what they're counting. The base is one of the sides. So what you're describing is an equilateral tetrahedron. It's one of the 5 perfect geometrical polyhedrons, like a cube, a tetrahedron, a dodecahedron, which is a 12-sided. Then there's 8 and 20. Octahedron is 8. I forget what 20 is.
Yeah, because in some sense, you're saying the original mind put out the dots, and then the energies came in and filled the dots, and the universe was created. I mean, Einstein said, all I want to do is learn God's thoughts or think like God, because if I could do that, the rest are just details. If I got the actual thought, I could figure out how and why everything got filled in the way it did. If I get too busy thinking like everybody else, I'll be like everybody else. Okay? So, okay, thank you. Anybody else want to share? I mean, I thought about that for a bit yesterday because there's so many really good toys that kids have now. I mean, if I'd had that when I was a kid, and I kind of looked at, because I was like, wow, this is really fun. Connecting the squares are obvious, right? You make a cube, da-da. But taking those triangles and doing that was fun. Okay. Anybody else notice anything about, we're kind of create the dots, connect them, create the dots, connect them, create the dots, connect them. Anybody?
This is Audrey.
Yeah.
I have stability problems with my legs, artificial
Okay.
knees, and other health issues. And so anyway, the bottom line is it really is helping my stability. And as a result, I'm questioning because, you know, I can do a series of dots when I'm going up and down the stairs to help me. But then you say you want it to be automatic. So when I go down one stair, I settle, and then I do the next stair and I settle. So at what point does it become, do I want to practice it without thinking on it, on the settle as I'm moving?
Well, I think, you know, it goes back to the exercise with the point. You practice the point eventually, so the point is like the moon when you don't see it. But, you know, the point is always a point of reference.
So I think of it, then when you say, you know, put all the points and connect the dots, then I put all the points out there in the direction that I'm moving to create a more sense of stability. So that helps me if I just put it forward rather than where I'm moving the Joe. I mean, the sword, can I do it like with my knees, or how many points can you have going at the same time?
Well, what I would try, if you want to try the step by step, I would just go point here, step, point here, step. Because what I find, and Cliff is touching it, you notice as the cut's much smoother, better, because that point is actually an organizer. Okay, the way that I look at it, you know, you've got the area of mind. Mind is, you know, laying the points. But then you get the body, the energies that come in and connect and fill the points. Now, there's a certain amount of, you know, connecting the points, which is also mind.
Yeah, so when you think of climbing a rope, which I could never do in gym, but we practice.
Yeah, okay.
You put one hand over the other, there's a point, and then you put the hand over the other. Now, when I was first learning to roll and I couldn't get the momentum going forward to stand up, my teacher said, imagine a rope out there that you're going to grab and pull it forward. So it feels like the same kind of thing as if you just imagine and move it. So I don't know, I'm confused. I heard you say just center inside the body point rather than imagine it outside of your body. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you know, the whole thing, you know, really boils down to, you know, even the point. See, the point itself, if you try to make it too physical, you get really too heavy. Okay. All right. But if I'm too mental with it, what I get is drift. Okay. So that point is a little bit like, you know, if this heaven, mind, earth, body. Where on that float, you know, that point floats. It doesn't drift though. And so one of the things which I find, okay, is that the point, whether I'm conscious of it or not, is an organizer. If I get up here, I get too abstract. But then again, if I drop and set down there, I get too rigid. And if this drifts, I get lost. So that point is more something, you know, which exists sort of between body and mind. And, you know, the way it was explained to me, you know, when I first started Aikido, you know, it was really big in those days, was Koichi Tohei sensei. And he just said that point connects mind and body. So what I would do a little bit now in motion, see, I kind of like puzzles that way because, you know, okay, I'm going to go this way, create the points so I can go back and connect them. Now, after a while, you can go this way, and this way you get colors. Or you can play games with sound, because everything is on harmonics and everything like that. Our ability to perceive colors is just light reflected back. And so, the area right there, I like the point as opposed, if I'm going to climb stairs, okay, for example, I go from, Nado Sensei. Here is one of those electrical lamps. But here's the center. Now, I'm going to walk to that next lamp, recenter. There's that period between where I can get caught up in the dots. But after a bit, you kind of say, okay, I'm going to go over there. There's 2 steps, center, 2 steps, your center. After a bit, your body and your mind are organizing themselves. That's the moon that you don't see. It's still there. And so that's, to some degree, is something that we want to cultivate. The no moon point. In other words, even when you're not thinking about it, it exists there, right? I mean, that takes a bit of work. I mean, there was an NBA all-time great shooter. In fact, Stephen Curry just broke his record, I think, for 3-point shots made. And, he was brought on as a commentator, and Curry was just making those shots and making those shots and, sprinting from underneath the basket, catching and shooting and making those shots. And this guy said, he makes it look so easy, but there's a lot of work. In other words, if you're doing that, you're connecting the dots and filling and connecting the dots and filling. But if you're just doing that, it gets too busy. That all of a sudden, there is who you are, really. You're not just that point. But to me, that point represents, if I were to kind of use a fancier term, it's self. The best of times, it's there. The worst of times, it's there. Self is ever present. I won't say self is that point, but that self, I think, is a lot like that. But the point is also an organizer, the domain of mind, laying out the points, domain of body, connecting the points. All right. Diagramming the points with a certain vibrational frequency, color scheme. Body, filling in that scheme with the colors or the sounds. That's what music is, right? Or artwork, if you're going to do that. So, that point to me is it's neither mind nor body. If you make that point too physical, you set. But if you get overly mental with it, it drifts, it doesn't flow. So, that to me is a pretty major practice, especially during the pandemic. There's a lot of stuff we can't do, but we can focus. That's really, what that point is more than anything else. I don't know if that helps or not, but I would try point, take a step, point, take a step. Point.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
I just don't want to, it's just like your feet. They can't get too far ahead of you. But there's other practices that I've done. Like we used to play with that point when we would drive from Salt Lake to LA or across the West Desert, trying to see if we could, shift our time speed a little bit, extend it forward, and see if we could warp time. You know what I mean?
That's pretty fancy. Yeah.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But, so there's just all kinds of games you play, and then you come back to the practical everyday life.
Yeah, the whole thing about like for example, curving time or warping time or something like that. If you really think of space-time as like a grid, right? I mean, somebody, for O-sensei, somebody comes at him and, it's in this sort of time frame. But for O-sensei, the whole fabric of space-time is much more expansive, right? I mean, one of the things that, we were talking about in the park, I think it was last weekend, Einstein's genius, his whole theory of relativity is in this A equals B. Okay, this side of the equation is mathematics, geometry, if you will. That side of the equation is physics. And there's an equal sign. Okay. Well, hey, you got math, mind on this side, and you got physics, body on this side, and you got the equal sign. Okay, so if I had my guess, and O-sensei would ask me the question, where's the floating bridge of heaven? I say it's on the equal sign. That's the point. And if you get the point, that and that are equal, they're in balance.
Yes, thank you. That's clarifying.
Yeah, I don't expect a Nobel Prize, okay, but gee, yeah, Aikido instructor solves unified field theory. That would be kind of cool, but I don't expect anything. But for my own practical reasons, where is the equal sign? It's here. If I'm going to stand up, I got to stand up for a reason to do that. I'm going to stand up and, I feel kind of awkward and stiff. At that point, the idea, stand up, the body organizes that. The idea, sit down, the body organizes that. If I'm too busy sitting and standing, I never find the equal sign. And I think Einstein even missed. I was watching a documentary where he did some pretty major work, and then he found out later that he'd missed the equations, that he had to redo it. Because then your work depends on your prior work. Okay, and sometimes what happens is it's useful to get somebody who's a checker spotter. Last season, some 280-pound idiot tried to take a charge when Stephen Curry was going to the basket. And so, you don't take a charge when somebody is, going to the hoop. You take it away from the hoop, okay? But this guy tried it, and he fell on Curry. Curry landed on his left wrist, and it was a mess, okay? And so, he's rehabbing, and he has a trainer, a man named Brandon Payne. And so Curry's sending him, this is all during the pandemic, so you're supposed to socially isolate, right? And then what happens is he sends him, some videos of, himself shooting, and his shooting coach says, stop. You're getting into bad habits shooting that way. So he says, don't shoot until I get there. It's going to be a week, and we can mask and socially distance. But right now, the way you're shooting, you are reinforcing some bad habits that are going to show up later. Okay, so see that area right there? We get too busy out there, and we get results. But it's a little off. It's like Einstein missing on that theory, right? On that equation. And then all of a sudden, he had to go back, because all your work is based on your prior work. And so the trick, I think, is to, your prior work is from here, and then there's an integration, okay? Okay? I mean, mentally, you're a kinesiologist or whatever, physicist would start to compute the angles to stand. Okay, those are the dots. Now we're going to fill them in. That's the body. Here, there's a type of geometry, mathematics. Here, there's the physics of it. And here is the equal sign. So, that's my big insight. So if we're looking for the floating bridge, it's useful to contemplate it. But one way of looking at it is right inside us. That's why we miss it. And the other thing is, Osensi probably practiced it a lot. And, I'm sure he used imagery to reinforce this. Amatsukami, the kami of heaven, kunitsukami, the kami of earth. That which connects, integrates heaven to earth, earth to heaven. So ten, chi, jin, humanity. Boom, 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 boom. As I do that, then there's a natural integration. So as you're centering, you take the step, center. There's going to be a natural sense where that equal sign, this stuff gets clearer. Okay? For us, it's not a set equation. The equation, and again, all your work is based on your prior work. If the prior work is, a little too, okay? So anyway, anybody else? Okay, let me check the time. Yeah, we're getting there. Now, so, in fact, the ability to kind of conceptualize the dots and connecting the dots comes from your ability to some degree to have some of this. Now, this is now the moon when you can't see it. Okay? Well, it's a quarter moon. It's a half moon. Okay? But this is the no moon. Now, what we're going to do is create the dots and connect them. But notice how here, if I'm a little too, I missed a lot of dots in trying to do it. But also right here, I go here and I'm kind of drifty. So I'm going to connect the dots. I'm going to, create the dots, connect the dots. But that closing motion, boom, I do it so well, I get a prize. I do all that and I forget the prize. Boom, I get another award. Boom. So create the dots, connect the dots, collect the prize. I don't collect the prize until, boom, I get this to some degree, this to some degree. That's what I get. Boom. Try a couple. Or if you like, get tired that way, just go back to this cup. So that proper ending, boom, comes out of this being done and that being done. So you get an award. Boom, boom. And don't be satisfied for 9th place, 8th place, 7th place. Or switch back. Yeah. Anyway, just checking in for a couple seconds. Anybody? I'm just swinging. I'm rushing it here or forcing it here, or I'm just too dreamy. Boom, boom, boom. Anybody?
I suddenly remembered a passage, a part of the book Zen and the Art of Archery,
Okay.
where he's first learning from his sensei, and the first thing the sensei does is he puts the target like, I don't know, 10 feet away, something ridiculously close, so that he can't possibly miss the target.
Okay.
And he asks his sensei why he's doing that, and he says, because I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to focus on your breath in your body. And so he spent the next few chapters focused on how he was breathing and how he was holding his body. And it just occurred to me that it's kind of a similar thing even with sword. Like if you focus on you, on the center, on the breathing, on the movement, then and less goal oriented about, striking perfectly, that's making me a little smoother.
Well, what happens if you get a really good cut, but you're all focused out there? There's too much drift. There's just too much drift.
Sure.
In other words, you have it then, but then you try to repeat the algorithms that got you out there, and you either delude yourself that you have it, or you go, oh my God, where'd that go? Whereas if you're focusing more here, and then out there something happens, then you have a point of reference which is a lot closer to just being able to kind of have that sort of stability. Everybody has bad games. I mean, or bad days, or, oh my God. But on the other hand, that point is there on our worst day, and that point is there on our best day. And, sometimes, what you find is handling a really bad day is actually harder than a great day. In fact, sometimes, if you learn to handle a bad day, that seems to kind of bring the great day into face because there's growth, right? Anybody can handle success, but it's just how things go when nothing's going the way it's supposed to go, and everything is just a recenter, recalibrate, refocus. And that point is going to be there, whether it's fantastic or whether it's okay. And not that I want to live in but so yeah. One of the other things I might want to mention is that we're focusing here. After a bit, the prize is the point. Oh, it's kind of the realization that even when you don't see the moon's there. See, it's not that the point is the cut. Okay, same thing. I don't have to swing. Well, why? Because, it's a game. Can I? create the points, connect the dots. Boom. And then if I do that well, boom, there's a prize. But that moment of the prize, boom, that's there. Boom. That's like looking out in the sky and realizing, even though you don't see it, the moon's there. Boom. That's not to say, okay, now I got the point. No, boom, boom, boom. Okay. So those are things that you got to sort of play around with. Okay. I was watching the 2009 March Madness, the NC2A tournament. And Stephen Curry took, like a really mediocre Davidson team to the final 8. They call it the Elite 8. It was one basket away from the Final 4. And basically, he passed the ball instead of taking the shot himself to somebody. He made probably the proper basketball decision. But everybody would like to have seen him take that shot, But that just watching how he would do all that stuff that had never been done before. There was a little guy that from a nothing school, Division I, Davidson, the only college that would give him a scholarship. Everybody else, your father was an NBA player, you're kind of, but we'll let you walk on and try out for the team. No, Davidson gave him a scholarship. And okay, but just watching how, he was doing all these things, but when he got into that shot, cutting, catching the ball, and that shot, it was amazing to see, because that moment, boom, over here, from another spot on the floor, there's that shot. And starting up to the basket, running right past the three-point line, turning around, catching, and immediately shooting and making it from ridiculous places. He caught the attention of a whole nation. And there's that area where that's that cut, too. I mean, we're not going to, boom. Where is that point? Well, it's here. But when you start to get the dots better and start to fill the dots better, boom. Oh, in that moment, even though the sky is totally dark, the moon still is. How's that feeling a bit? So, those are, I don't know if that'll help you, but that's sort of stuff that comes up for me around that. So anybody want to share? I think I've got to actually do a couple of errands, so I'm going to have to end it a little early. Let's see. Anybody? Okay. Maybe you might want to hang around and kind of do something. But I got to get going a little earlier now. Let's see. We have David. Would you mind if people want to do a little discussion or kind of just sort of socialize? Would you mind, making yourself the host or something right there?
Well, you or somebody else will have to make me the host.
Okay, let me do that. See if I can do that. Okay, add replay spotlight. Okay, are you the host now?
Nope.
Nope.
Spotlight's not the same as host.
Okay, all right. So let's do this. Let's go back up here. Okay, I did this the other day. I found it. Let me. Unfortunately,
We're still recording, by the way, so we should probably turn that off.
I should what?
We're still recording.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well. Okay. So we'll turn it. Can I turn it off? Okay. Stop recording.